So thanks very much for turning up. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Simon Wright. I was the founder of the company called Industrial Evolution that Yokogawa acquired at the beginning of this year. So that's the one that was mentioned, or one of the companies that was mentioned in the keynote introductions this morning. And actually what Yokogawa is doing is merging the company that I brought to Yokogawa with the KBC company they just acquired and some other companies that all operate in this space of effectively creating added value services and products. So focused more on the outcome than on the products themselves and the services themselves. So in the area of cloud and Internet of Things, no one's buying kind of cloud services just for the sake of cloud services, right? They're buying them because they're trying to achieve some outcome. And I know you could say that about every product and every service, but particularly in the area of cloud service, it's very intangible, very difficult to touch it, very difficult to understand what the value of a cloud service is. We all know the risk, but what's the value? So this is a presentation that is driven through a case study, but it's basically trying to explain a use case that shows the value of one use case in the chemical industry. And the purpose of this is to grow your business. So it's really looking at how a chemical company, and in general how chemical companies can use cloud-based services to grow their business. So we've all heard of the Internet of Things, and a lot of discussion about that today. We saw the washing machine, and there are many, many cases of kind of very cool applications of the Internet of Things. And the characteristic of the Internet of Things is lots of measurements, lots of sources of data, and we want to receive those sources of data, and we typically want to interact with them through a cell phone or through some sort of web browser. So this is kind of cool, and we're all starting to experience that stuff in our daily lives. But at work, in each of these things, so a washing machine is a thing, or some of the data within the washing machine is a thing. The horse here, I guess that's a thing on top of his head. There's a thing in this football here to measure, the statistics of football players or American football players. So lots of things. But in our world, our things look a little bit different. So our things look like this, and they look like this. And actually, I've been there. They look like this. They look like this. Like this. Like this. So the question really is, if we want to get access to the data that's in those things, we have a lot more problems than getting data from a washing machine. We have a lot more risk getting data from these things than getting data from washing machines. But we have a potential to make a lot more money than being able to operate our washing machine from our desk at work or from the bar at night. And some of the applications that are requiring companies like yourselves to want access to data from a plant as the changing business models. So the story I'm going to tell you is really about accessing data not from your plant, but from your customer's plant. So if you make a chemical product, you sell that to your customer, then you can increase your business if you get to know more about your customer's use of that product. And there are many, many other types of collaborative business models. So the first one, and the one I'm going to emphasize here, is supplier-customer. You potentially as manufacturers are supplying product to another customer, maybe a car dashboard maker, maybe a pulp and paper mill that consumes your water treatment chemicals. But there are many other collaborative business models. There are operator advisors. There are third parties who can bring capabilities. KBC is one of those. They have consultants. Those consultants have expertise. They need to view a plant operation to be able to provide that expertise. There are joint ventures. In a joint venture, one party operates. The other party may have $1 billion invested in that joint venture, but has no visibility of that operation, but wants that visibility. There are owner contract operators, tolling type of operations. And then in power in particular, there are wholesaler, reseller, retailer kind of relationships. There are people manufacturing power, selling to the utility, and then the utility sells to us as consumers. All of these are collaborative business models. All of them need data, but at least one half of that relationship doesn't have access to the data because it's not their plant. So first of all, let's describe the data that we deal with, different from the washing machine, different from the racehorse, right? The data that we deal with is global in nature. It's proprietary, quite often proprietary, almost always proprietary, quite often firewalled. It's actually typically in a historian or a DCS, tucked behind at least one level of firewall, potentially more than that. And we love to think about standards, but actually there's a whole world of sources of data. Data can come on bits of paper, handwritten, typed, can come in Excel files and reports, PDF files, smart devices, dumb devices, tablets, cell phones, PLCs, control systems, SCADA systems, historians, and data warehouses, and more. That list can go on and on. There's lots of data that we deal with. And it's communicated in many ways. So this is a world really where standards are being created. This is the organization that cares about that. But it's a world where there's a lot of legacy stuff, and there's a lot of things that we need that actually don't come from our world. They come from the kind of more like the IT world. So communication methods, there's cell phones, analog phones, satellite networks, fiber networks, radio, Wi-Fi, internet, text messages, instant messages, all sorts of ways of getting the data, and all sorts of formats in which that data comes. So that's the world that we deal with when we want data. It's a little bit more complex than the washing machine story. So the industrial Internet of Things problem statement is, how do I get the data from companies that generate it to the companies that need it and value it? So that's the case study we're going to go through. And obviously we have a solution in this area, so I'll come to the solution now. So in your mind, you've got a kind of a clear picture of what we're doing. But I'm going to be telling you a story about our client, who is a water treatment chemical supplier. They are called Solenis. That's the old Ashland Chemicals, or one of the groups that got spun off. They make water treatment chemicals for anti-fouling, anti-corrosion, and many other purposes. And they have thousands of customers all around the world. So a customer could be a paper mill, could be a hospital running an incinerator, could be a power plant running a cooling tower, could be an oil refinery, could be a chemical plant. And their thousands of customers all have data that Solenis wants to see. And that data is in all of those different formats and all of those different systems in lots of places around the world and available through lots of communication channels. Solenis makes chemicals and wants to help its customers. Solenis does not want to deal with all of this stuff. They want to deal with that relationship, the relationship between themselves and their customer. So if we bear in mind kind of the solution, let's just go through the case study. So Solenis is an expert in water treatment technology. They've been around almost as long as Yokogawa, 94 years in business, probably longer than that now, 95 years. They have state-of-the-art chemistry. They have a very good reputation for innovation in their market space. They have a large and very capable frontline service team. The problem is those people can only deliver service if they go visit their customers, and their customers are everywhere. So very expensive to keep and maintain that service team. And they serve the industries that we operate in. So they serve chemical industry, but also pulp, paper, oil and gas, power, and some other markets. The market they face in is probably very similar to you. Right? This is the water treatment market, but I could almost guarantee that this reflects your market. It's big, but there are many suppliers. There are 50 companies supplying 70% of that market. So the big guys is Dow, GE, Nalco, which is now owned by Ecolab, Oxy, and, well, was Ashland when we first did this. They're now called Solenis. And they face a world in which their customers are driving commoditization. Their customers are saying, hey, your product's just the same as your product. I'm going to buy the cheapest. That's the pressure that they face. I think that sounds familiar to probably everybody in this room. They are trying to differentiate based on innovation, based on service. They've patented some special measurement devices for corrosion and fouling, but so have other people. And their large and technically savvy service organization does differentiate them, but the other guys also have large and capable service organizations. So they were trying to think outside the box on how to retain their existing customers and how to win new customers and how to defeat competition. What do they do to achieve that? So they put in place a oh, sorry, this is more about their goals, so I'm going to flash through that. They put in place a program to remotely provide real-time technical service. They wanted to remotely monitor their customers so their service engineers could actually do that remotely and then focus in on those particular customers who had the biggest problems or the biggest opportunities, the biggest problems to be solved, the biggest opportunities to be served. So they had a big program, and the one that we engaged in was this remote performance and device monitoring program. And the idea was to provide visibility to the performance of their product in their customer's operation. If they're selling antifoulant, they want to measure the fouling that's actually happening and help their customer reduce that. So they created a project. Sorry. There we go. Called Web Technician. That's the solution, the service that we provide. And like all projects, it went through some sort of functional assessment and functional detailed specification, and then went into a vendor selection process. The requirements they had included some of these. They wanted a scalable platform and support structure. They wanted to be able to have a platform that would scale as their customers started to adopt it and as technology changes. In fact, they already had a platform. They had built one themselves, and the problem with it was it didn't scale and it didn't keep up to date with technology. There were some other problems, and we'll describe some of those later. But that platform had to be secure, and it had to integrate with their Salesforce and their SAP systems. The reason it had to integrate with those is because this is all about their customer, and a lot of the information they hold about their customer is in other systems. So they had to be interacting with each other. Had to be fully web-based. They didn't want it, every time they wanted to make a change, they didn't want to program something. They wanted it to be delivered as a web-based solution that could be easily updated and upgraded. So when upgrades happen, it's done in the background and the user doesn't really experience that. They wanted connectivity to all of the sorts of devices that their customers have. They didn't want to impose a solution on their customer. They want to take advantage of the solutions their customers already had. Only where their customer doesn't have a solution for data collection would Solenis provide a solution for themselves. So if you go to an oil refinery or a large chemical plant, you're going to find a historian or some sophisticated system that has most of the data that Solenis needs. Their challenge was to connect to that system. If you go into a hospital where there's probably a little room with a PLC controlling the incinerator, then they had to put in some connectivity. They had to put in some telemetry devices and things like that to collect their data. And they wanted, of course, once they collect the data, they want to do something with it. So they wanted features that enabled them to look at the history and look at the performance of that product that they've sold. So they wanted statistical quality control capabilities and the ability to search and slice and dice the performance of their customers. The other aspect that they were interested in was some marketing features, right? They've now got a portal, if you imagine a portal, that they can look at, but also their customers can look at. This is needs to be a two-way interaction. It's not just give me your data and I will look at it. It's give me your data and we'll share information with each other. I'll help you solve your problems. You share information with me. I'll give you my advice back. I'll share you information about my company and about the capabilities that we have. So there was a marketing component to this as well. So each person who logs onto the system can be presented with unique information relevant to that particular product or that particular user or company that Solenis deals with. Okay, so here's their kind of selection criteria, right? They looked at more or less 3 types of companies or 3 ways to solve this, to do this project. The one was repeat what they'd done before, so do it in-house, so build something. And there were some reasons why they did it before, and those reasons still existed, right? They know their own business better than anyone else. They have the ability to increase and reduce resources faster than anyone else and at the lowest direct cost. The problem is it's not really their core business. Their core business is making and selling chemicals. Their core business is not IT, and their IT department has conflicting priorities and lacks a long-term support model. They're geared up for supporting the desktops of Solenis people. They're not geared up for supporting the 24/7 support of Solenis's customers. And when a Solenis customer calls in and says, I forgot my password, or I can't log onto my machine today, they're not geared up for supporting all the different types of problems that those 2,000 customers may all have who don't follow the same standards that Solenis do. So they gave up on that pretty quickly. They then looked at like equipment suppliers. So there are specialized equipment suppliers, SCADA suppliers, who know that business and will offer products in that area. But those products are typically not web-based, and they are tied to that piece of hardware. And their 2,000 customers don't have that piece of hardware. So it was a very difficult way to go. It was not a practical solution for them. Their only way to go is obviously they ended up picking us. We had a cloud infrastructure in place. We had a service and development model established and a configurable solution. We didn't have any water treatment business expertise. Well, it didn't matter because they had that. They didn't need us for that. They needed us for our IT expertise. I promise we've learned a little bit about the water treatment business since then, but that wasn't the expertise they wanted with us. And while the system was configurable, because we didn't have water treatment expertise, there were things within our solution that they wanted to better reflect their business. So there was a development component to what we were doing, and that development component would take longer than them doing it themselves and longer than these specialized people because they had to teach us a little bit about the water treatment business to achieve that. But anyway, that's why they selected a service-based approach. So I want to just quickly flash through some screen images of what we've done, just to show you it's real. You won't be able to see the detail here. There is a demo downstairs, so Gene, maybe you can stand up. There's no sign for our demo, so we have a sign now? Okay, I was going to say, he's the sign. So Gene has a demo in the exhibit hall downstairs and is happy to sort of go through this in detail for anyone who wants to see it. But anyway, so this is the, right away, this is the homepage, right? So right away, this is configured for them. This is how Solenis presents it. If you're a different company, and I've got another one from a different company coming up soon, it will look completely differently. And then as soon as you've logged in, as soon as it knows who you are, it then presents you your homepage. So this homepage can look completely different for every single user in the system. And just to give you an example of kind of what's here, so this part of the screen is really a marketing message or information from Solenis to their user. But as I say, it can be dynamic, can contain all sorts of information, can change over time, and Solenis can update this. We don't have to be the people updating this. And then down the side here is your typical kind of organizational tree, and that tree can be organized however they want it to be organized. So this particular view of this world is someone who, it was me, I guess, someone who has access to see everything. So I can see 2,000 sites, and therefore I probably want to order it by customer, but sometimes I want to order it by geography. Sometimes I want to order it by type of equipment. So I want to see all the cooling towers. I want to see all of the yellow metal furnaces. There's lots of different ways that I might want to organize my view of the information. And you think about it, this is really someone in Solenis being able to see 2,000 of the process units that consume their product. 2,000, that's a large number. Okay, and then each branch of that tree cascades into dashboards. And they can create their own dashboards. We, as a project, typically create the first few, and then they just go create as many as they want and assign all the privileges. So it's a service that they manage. So now they're not doing the IT management, they're doing the business management. So they're deciding which of my salespeople can see which customer. They're deciding which of my customers can see what information that Solenis wants to share with them. They're managing all of that information. So it consists of many, many dashboards, trends, statistical data, and right down to individual process measurements. And then there's a reporting capability. So the reporting capability, this is the typical report that a water treatment company would share with its customer. They can generate that thing automatically. It can be done on demand. It can be done on schedule. It can be automatically emailed out to the customer or to the sales support person within Solenis. And it can be done by exception. And this is how things have progressed. So this project started about 5 years ago. And after 5 years, so this is halfway through 2016, we achieved the 2,000 installation mark. Within those installations, that represents 400 individual corporations. So 2,000 sites, 400 individual corporations, and there are 2,000 individual users logged into this system. And we're typically getting 45,000 hits a month on this website. And it's been deployed all around the world. So there isn't a region of the world where we're not collecting data for Solenis. A couple of their stories. So this is taken directly from their reports. So two things that they've achieved with this system. So one is, well, they had two objectives at the beginning. One is to retain customers. One is to gain new customers. So here's a story where they retained a customer. So they defended against a competitive threat. And they did it because, I think at the bottom there, the customer, what does it say here? Right, the customer, here's the key one. The customer expressed that they have greater confidence in our client's ability to control and keep their product within specifications since the online monitoring program was implemented. Ashland is there making sure that when this customer, paperboard manufacturer, buys product from, sorry, I call them Ashland, Solenis, when they buy product from Solenis, that they are going to get the performance that they asked for. So that when the next guy comes and says, buy my product instead, they have confidence in the claims made by Solenis, and they lack confidence in the claims made by their competitor. And then they won business, so they actually used it to win business against competitors. So this is there's two projects here. One is where a site where they were not the incumbent, they weren't already supplying to that site. So by using this, they managed to kind of get their foot in the door on one of those sites. And then the second example is where they were already on a site and they were chosen as the preferred supplier for all the plant locations because they were able to provide a level of service that none of the other competitors were able to supply. And these are their lessons learned, right? So right at the beginning, I said one of their objectives was to monitor the devices and the data. That was an initial objective. One of the lessons they learned is really that was never an objective. The objective is not to manage the device installed on the customer site. The objective is to manage the performance of the chemical they sold to the customer. That's a lesson learned. I think to us it was kind of obvious at the beginning, but they believe that now. The phase of deciding what they need and specifying it properly was, as you can imagine, very important. But the key learning is really that the differentiation and efficiency create value. So I talked the examples of differentiation. Differentiation retained business and won new business, but they also gained efficiency in their own organization. Their salespeople and their customer service people, instead of showing up on the plant and finding out there was nothing to talk about, could focus in on the sites where they were actually needed or where there was actually an opportunity. So they save quite a lot of money in their sales and service organization. I've got one more, which is very quick, right? But this is it's another example. So KBR may be known to you. KBR is so not to be mixed up with KBC, KBR is a very large EPC, engineering contractor, but they are also a technology provider. KBR is the largest provider and most successful licenser of ammonia technology. So they have a licensing organization and a technology consulting organization. And they are very successful at selling that ammonia technology to their customers. The problem that they have two problems. One is those customers have typically never operated an ammonia plant before, so they don't have much expertise. KBR has the expertise. And they've been around about 115 years as well. They've been a long time player in this business. The other problem that a licenser has is once they sold a license and go away, they don't see that customer for another 15 or 20 years when it's time to change the technology or to build a new plant, right? So they lack a means of continuous engagement with their customer post-license. So they had really two objectives. One was to help the customer who's just bought the license get best value for that license. Secondly, to retain that customer and retain the engagement with that customer throughout the life of that plant, not just as a one-off project at the beginning. They also have, they have warranty obligations as well. So they want to be able to monitor and to an extent they want to be able to police the warranty obligations that they have. So they've created a solution. They call it Ammonia Insight. Ammonia Insight is their brand name for our data as a service solution, which we call Web Technician. Right? So we sell a service called Web Technician. They white label it as Ammonia Insight, and they sell that service to their customers. So this looks just the same as the other one. It's tipped on its nose, but it's the same drawing as we had before. KBR, down the bottom here, wants to be able to see the operation of its ammonia licensees. In fact, KBR uses some simulation applications. They're not just collecting data and doing statistics and raw data analysis. They actually run some rigorous analyzers of that ammonia operation and are doing kind of what if and optimization cases. So they have a very technical solution in order to help these operators operate the ammonia plants to the best of their ability. And I'm going to flash through a few more slides, and I think if you ignore the colors and the pictures, it's going to look the same as the other one, right? So this is how KBR presents Ammonia Insight to its customers. Actually, I think Solenis, they call their solution OnGuard Online, OGOL, OnGuard Online. So they present it just like this, and up the top there it says OnGuard Online. And as you see, it presents some marketing case at the beginning, and I guess I didn't go into the login page on this one. But then they start to see dashboards, and now the dashboards look different because they made them look different, right? All of these are configured through objects. They can just drag these Spark trends. They can drag tables of data. They can drag all sorts of trends and objects into that dashboard. I'm showing down the right-hand side, there's a menu of other things. So down the left-hand side there's a menu of other kind of options. There's alerting systems, there's all sorts of other applications, and There is administrative functions. So this is showing some of the administrative functions. I can create users and groups of users and the like. Now, this is just looking kind of in general, right? So this solution has been around or the basic capabilities have been around for about 15 years. So 2000, think what you were doing on the internet in 2000. We're only just now talking about Internet of Things. 2000, it wasn't called cloud, it wasn't called Internet of Things, but actually these solutions have been in place, and they've been in place by companies, some of whom are represented in this room today, right? So BSF uses this type of a solution in the United States. Henkel uses this type of solution in the United States. Solenis is using this all around the world. Praxair is using this all around the world. Here's an interesting one. Wells Fargo, a bank. What's a bank using this solution for? They own the largest portfolio of solar PV generation in the world, and they therefore operate something like 500 or 600 solar facilities, and all of them are monitored using this same solution. And then a project can be really, really simple or can take a long time, right? So they're really simple. They can take as little as 5 weeks if the site that we're connecting to has a good infrastructure and the security has already been approved. So typically, second time we do something takes no time at all. First time we do something, really it takes no time, but sometimes the security approvals and reviews and audits that we have to go through can take quite some time. And perhaps if we are the company that is building the dashboards, then there's a kind of a project in there to build dashboards. But if the customer is building the dashboards themselves, then from our point of view, it doesn't take long. And the only difference between those two projects is, do we build the dashboard or does the customer build the dashboard? And is the security review, a long period of time, or is it a short period of time? That's the only difference between a long project and a short project. Most of our projects, because our customer base is so large, most of our projects are in this category at the top, 5 weeks, unless we're commissioned to do the portal development as well. And like all good collaborations, there's benefits to both parties. So the receiver of the data, depends why they want to receive it, but the types of benefits they get is operational improvement. So they can look at things as a fleet. Ashland or Solenis can look at all of the cooling towers they deal with as a fleet. Joint venture operations can look at all of the things they own, not just all of the things they operate. If I look down at the sender of the data, then the sender of the data also benefits, and again, depends on what why they're doing this, what their use case is. But the benefits, are in the categories of cost effectiveness and better support and operational improvement. So that's the presentation. There is a demonstration downstairs if anyone wants to see that, but I'm willing to take any questions. Anyone got any questions at this stage?